Well, hello peeps. Here today we have some PvP changes coming July 25th or 26th, depending on your region. 26th for me. So we're just gonna get straight into it. We're just gonna discuss it. Evokers, skip the tanks, who cares? Evokers, augmentation, getting some, how would you say, adjustments. These are of course PvE focused. They're trying to switch it from, you know, buffing less and, how would you say, doing more damage on its own. The most important, I guess, is that Ebon Might and Breath of Eons are now 20% more effective and not in raid instead of 40%. So these two abilities, which are pretty big in the Evoker's kit, are now quite a bit, you know, 20% weaker. Ebon Might increases damage done of the Evoker though now more, and Eruption damage is just increased overall, which does get a little bit affected later. Beast Mastery Hunter and Survival Hunter getting huge buffs, so these are also going through in PvP. Definitely you've seen kind of the fall of the hunters, they've definitely fallen off in season 2 in general, especially in these kind of later kind of patches. Definitely hoping this will gonna bring them back, because I want to play some hunter. I definitely want to go play some SV. So this is, I think, definitely good. It does not feel to me like Beastmaster and Survival have been kind of damaging too much. Marksmanship definitely feels like it does enough damage, so I like that there's no changes for marksmanship, you know, so that's all good. Monk, Windwalker now, again, thanks, we just keep Windwalker now. Kind of interesting that they're buffing Rising Sun Kick. Kind of to me, I guess. I think in PvP it does enough damage already, but it does get adjusted in the PvP changes. Fist of Fury does not go into PvP. Blackout Kick and Tiger Palm damage. Now this is kind of interesting. This is definitely gonna increase your overall damage, especially, you know, outside of your cooldowns. So we kind of have to wait and see how, with kind of combined with the PvP changes, how this is gonna affect the Monk. Because right now I think Monk is in a pretty good spot. But I definitely agree with what Blizzard is trying to do right in the PvP changes, which we'll discuss a little bit later. Paladin, protection, tank, who cares? Now there's a slew of like buffs and nerfs, mainly like AoE nerfs from what I've seen, from what I understand. Again, I'm really not savvy when it comes to Shadow Priests or Priests in general. Healers, those would be kind of my weak points. Some caster classes and some healers, but I think overall just is kind of a nerf to the AoE side, but you have these buffs that are just not going into PvP, right? So kind of does not matter to us overall, right? Too much. Here this does matter. All healing increased by 5%. I thought the rest of Shamans were also already kind of pretty decent, right? So 5% pretty huge. This means rest of Shaman's thonks are going up quite a bit. I thought they were already kind of like 8 tier, you know, 8 tier-ish, so this is definitely gonna solidify them as a really good, really strong healer spec. Especially since I don't see any, how would you say, really nerfs down there. But before we get into the PvP changes, I do have to inform you that only 4.3% of you are subscribed. So if you have been enjoying the content, please consider smashing that subscribe button. Now moving on to these PvP changes. First of all, balance getting some nerfs. Kind of necessary. High winds, this is like the most important thing from, how you say, all different like nerfs. Is just, this is just not gonna make you, every time you get cycloned by a boomy, it's like for 6 seconds you are just useless right after that, so it just feels like really good. And also boomies really have like an easy time already casting those cyclones, generally speaking, so I don't know, I just felt like this talent it's really good to have this like neutered a little bit. Like it's still strong, like 15% is still strong, and for 3 seconds I just don't know like if the duration is like good, you know, maybe in my opinion. Also nerfed the Rat or Starfire damage in PvP. I kind of feel weird because they're usually trying to make boomies do damage by actually having to cast, right? So kind of weird change when you look at what they're trying to design boomies in PvP, right? So Evokers, here are some more changes. It's no longer 40% more effective in PvP. Ebon Might, thank God. Eruption damage is now increased by 25%. It was 50%, so this is like to combat the increase to eruption damage, like the baseline. I think eruption damage is still gonna end up doing more. So I think this is still kind of a buff, right? So it's just nerfing the buff a little bit. I think upheaval damage now increased by 25%, was 15%, so upheaval got a damage buff, but then it's getting nerfed the PvP talent, not PvP talent, sorry, a talent that increases its damage by 50% to the primary target, so upheaval is gonna be doing some more AoE. And now to the most important change of all healing done is now reduced by 10%. This is huge, but I also have kind of a complaint where I don't think this is like the main problem of the augmentation evoker. Like, you don't go after the game and see like the healing done, and like the augmentation evoker is like doing so much healing, right? It's doing decent healing, especially since it's doing it to another class, but it's just not ever gonna top like the self-healing of certain classes, right? Of like me as a demon hunter, I just self-heal a lot more than this class is ever gonna heal me. I feel like the strength of this class is more of in its damage reduction stuff, so like the absorption effect is reduced by 30%, but who cares, right? Reduce the armor that it gives, right? It's more about the passive defenses that it buffs, so reduce the mastery effectiveness, right? So I don't know, it's just my, I guess, opinion. I feel like evokers are now not like, they're not like a hard S tier anymore, I feel like. But I don't see them going down like too much, because like in my opinion, their healing and shielding was like a part of it, but it wasn't like the thing that made the classes unkillable, right? It was more about the fact that they had like a 30% uptime on a 10 to 15% buff on versatility, right? That's huge. That's like what makes a class tank a lot more. That's like literally a different class at that point, right? So you had these windows where you have these classes like the healer and the other DPS just being a completely, you know, not in this patch class. So I feel like that's still gonna happen. So definitely a strong A tier or like a softer S tier in my opinion, and I don't think it's like I don't think they're enough in my opinion like to make this class perfectly balanced. I feel like this class needs to have an impact on its like more of those percentage things that it does for the team, right? Or rather than like the healing reduction. I just feel like the healing was not that much of a huge issue, or like the shield as well. Like sure, it's gonna be the top healing, shielding, whatever on the breakdown, but it's not something that's gonna, right? It's more of those things that you don't see. I feel like the versatility buff that that you have like a 30% uptime on, right? That to me feels like is more of those things that should get a little bit of a tuning down, right? Moving on, Beastmaster Hunter just buffing barbed shot damage. Actually, damage was reduced, so it does more damage to high armor targets. I just feel like Blizzard needs to think about this kind of armor things that they do. I feel like it's in a weird spot where you just have certain specs, right, of classes that they just perform better in PvP in a constant basis because of this like armor thing, right? So like the reason why I enjoyed the Elementalist Shaman, Enhancement Shaman a lot more is because you deal the same exact damage to all the different classes, but if you're playing, you know, Stormstrike, you do a lot more damage to a priest, a lot more damage to a rogue, to letter, of course, but then you go hit the paladin and you're like, oh, what the fuck? You know, what the hell am I doing here? You know, can't do shit. So it's just how I feel about it personally. Mage is a bunch of changes, so these are just, I feel like I was very correct in my tier list. I can also like announce my tier list here. I'm gonna be making one as soon as we get some more changes. I think there's somewhere here a little thing where they say that they plan to update this by Monday more, so I'm gonna make a tier list after they update the changes. The kind of more definitive tier list for the 10.1.5 patch. The most important thing to me here is that I was correct on the tier list rankings where I said Fire and Arcane were kind of doggo, and then Frost is actually getting nerfs, right? Getting kind of just a rebalance. Well, Fire and Arcane just getting straight up buffs, right? These are just buffs. So Arcane, Fire, big stonks going up. Frost, I guess rebalanced is the best way to say. It's definitely not gonna be just able to rare Frost anymore that much, but I don't feel like Frost was that huge of a problem. It's just kind of versus a melee, right? Frost is just always annoying for melees to deal with. Priests, some just kind of minor changes in my opinion. I'm not sure what these are just some kind of stacking modifiers, I guess, for Shadow. I'm not exactly sure what those are, but they're just, I guess, easier to stack up now. That's kind of it, right? Windwalker, now that's what I was talking about. Rising Star critical strike damage bonus is now 50% effective in PvP combat. So you're gonna be critting less with those Rising Sun Kinks, but they're supposed to do more damage now? So I'm not sure how this math's gonna work, because that's still a, you know, the Rising Star, how would you say, Rising Sun Kick is still buffed by 10%, so might be that it's still gonna be doing, you know, good crits. We'll just have to see. It's definitely gonna be doing more damage without critting, so it's a good thing in general, right? Not relying on your crits. Serenity, now this is the big change here. I'm not sure, like, I think we're definitely going to not be using Serenity anymore, because this is huge. Like 5% from this is just huge, and I know they want to change the damage profile of the monk, but they need to, I feel like, buff certain abilities and kind of think about how the monk does damage, right? So they buff like the consistent buttons, and it's just kind of hard, right? Because when they have like this kind of, you know, just flat damage modifier and so many different cooldowns and stuff, I feel like this is a different video. At this point I need to talk about the monk more design. I feel like monk has some problems with the design, why they can't really change the damage profile into the consistent damage mode, because basically the main point is that it has too many different cooldowns and stuff that make it right into just a bursty class. Whirling Dragon Punch buffed by 40%. I'm not sure this is gonna change anything. Like, Whirling Dragon Punch is so bad right now. It does so little damage. It's like a 30k global. Like, I don't think... Yeah, I don't think we'll be playing still Whirling Dragon Punch. I'm just not sure how it's gonna work out, all of these things in the end for the monk, because this is kind of a huge nerf. Like 5% on your burst is actually pretty huge. So we'll see. We'll have to kind of wait and see and wait for the patch and kind of test out. I still think monks are really good. So I think it's still gonna be like 8 tier, and we're just gonna be playing kind of maybe a different build or whatever, right? Maybe the pets. Yeah, we're just gonna be running the storms, the spirits. Elemental Shaman, Enhancement Shaman getting a buff on the control of lava, which is like the spell punish. I don't know what to say about it. I just don't... Yeah, I don't think this is huge. I don't think this is gonna change. Even for the Elementalist build, right, where it's like really big that your Flame Shock stays, I don't think this changes much. For Elemental, it actually is kind of a pretty good, how would you say, change, right? Because I actually, like, when I would play like Paladin, I would run Seals of the Pure, right? Dispel myself always from this Flame Shock, because if they start cleaving, right, it's just gonna cleave to you the damage, and you just reduce so much damage by having Flame Shock dispelled. So that's how I feel about it. I just don't feel like these are just gonna do that much for Enhance, but kind of pretty big for Elemental. Warriors, I'm really sad here to see this slam buff. I just don't know. Like, then this needs to be like 300% for, I think, slam to do any damage. I just think slam is just useless. Maybe my personal opinion. Sorry. So I don't think this is gonna be like bringing it back, you know, bringing it into the meta or whatever. These buffs are just straight up buffs. I like the Bladestorm change. I really kind of miss Bladestorm doing damage on its own, so it kind of is also good. You got to kind of skip a talent. I'm sorry, I'm getting a phone call there, kind of distracted me. So you get to kind of skip Unhinged these days. I think it's probably not gonna be good anymore. It's 60% effectiveness. Gonna reduce the burst of the Bladestorm, but I feel like the Bladestorm, like, you're gonna feel like a lot better, like Wrath of the Lich King when we first got Bladestorm, you know, it's gonna feel like pretty good to Bladestorm actually. So I don't know, I like the change just because I like Bladestorm being a good button to press, you know, that's like my personal, how would you say, feeling about the warrior class. Fury, of course, execute damage increased. Onslaught. Fury, as I said, definitely was a bit tier. I was also correct on that. I feel like just lacked that consistent pressure that it had in the previous patch, and definitely good that it's getting some buffs and some love. I don't think it's gonna, like, these are not like oh my god, Fury is OP next patch, but it's definitely a lot better, and we just have to kind of wait and see just how much effect they do. So, I hope you've enjoyed this little video. Like, comment, subscribe, all those things the YouTubers want you to do, and have a nice day!